Okay, so now let's take a look at the movable and very usable scale form 1. This is a major scale form, and you can find the attached PDF to this video that's going to help you to understand this. So we learned it linearly, but it's going to help you understand it in a more real-world way. Okay, so up until now, we've been learning the bits and pieces about applying the numbers and what have you. What this is going to do is literally show you the bass notes for the chords as they're right underneath your finger. So I call it the movable and very usable form. Obviously it's movable because it's like any scale on the guitar where you can move it up and down the neck, but we can also move it from the 6th string root to the 5th string root, so you can use it for either, so it's very useful. And very usable because not only can you use it for soloing and that sort of thing, but it's going to be super helpful in regards to finding chords very quickly without even having to think about the letter name of the chord. Literally, with this method, thinking like this, you won't have to think of letter names of chords for any key. You'll just be able to grab it, and that form will be underneath your fingers. Okay? So let's talk about that. So using that attached PDF, you're going to be starting off in the 2nd position, meaning your first finger's behind the 2nd fret. And we're going to start with our 2nd finger. And we're going to be playing on the low E string. We're going to be playing frets 3 and 4. And on the 5th string, we're going to be playing frets 2, 3, and 5. And on the 4th string, the D string, we're going to be playing frets 2, 4, 5. Okay, so a lot of you probably know this form already, but again, if you don't, you need to memorize it. If you do know it, it's something that you want to be able to play just off the cuff, all across the neck. You want to be able to play it chromatically. You want to be able to play it starting from the 6th string. You also want to be able to play it from the 5th string. So we can use this. It's a great exercise. And again, it's going to apply to our national number system. So when I'm thinking about this scale, I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And in the studio, when players are looking at chords, that's exactly how they're thinking of the notes, and it's exactly how they're thinking of the chords. So let's take, for example, in the key of G. So this is where you're going to have an aha moment. I promise you, you will, because I had it, and it's really cool. So starting on a G here, if we wanted to know what the 4 chord was in the key of G, then we just play through our scale. If that's a G note, then 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a C. In the key of G, it happens to be a C major scale, or a C major chord. Okay. So you want to get accustomed to counting when you're playing these scales as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay. We really don't say an 8 chord. We always say a 1. Okay. So it's 1 through 7. And so you want to get accustomed to doing that, especially when you're practicing this, okay? And you can even do it backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very important to know it backwards as well. So if we wanted to know what the 5 chord is, or at least if we wanted to know what the bass note of the 5 chord is, then we'd play through our scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we know that note is a D because of knowing all the notes on the fretboard. Or this note, when you're tuning your guitar, is the same as your D string. So it's going to be some form of a D chord, you know, either major or minor. Now, we're going to talk about diatonically what the chords should end up being as the major scale dictates. Okay, more on that a little bit later. But we know that the bass note should at least be a D. Okay. Now, if we're here on our G note or chord, we can work up the scale. We can also work backwards. So as you start getting more accustomed to the sound of this scale or knowing the intervals going down, then it's helpful as well. So for instance, if someone says, play a 6 chord, well, what would be the bass note of a 6 chord? Well, if this is our 1, we can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we can name that note as a D, D sharp, E. So it's some form of an E chord. Or if we're at our G here, very, very helpful to be able to know that we can go down. So 1, 7, 6. So there's our 6. So it's going to be some form of an E chord. Now, later on you're going to see that it's going to be an E minor chord, that our 6 chord is almost always going to be a minor chord, our 4 is almost always going to be major, and our 5 chords are almost always going to be major. There are some exceptions to this, but as a rule of thumb, that's how it's going to work out, and we're going to see that in some upcoming videos here. Okay, so now that you know this movable and very useful major scale form 1, I want you to practice it up and down the fretboard, even in the open position. So if you're in the key of F, you're going to have to change the fingering, okay, which I am confident that you'll be able to do. And I want you to practice it up and down the neck, and also practice it from the 6th string bass or 6th string root and the 5th string root, okay? And that is going to be the backbone or the benchmark for understanding the chords that we're going to be doing coming up soon.